The front door clicked softly behind me as I stepped inside, the low murmur of leftover conversations still echoing in my ears. The dinner had lasted longer than I thought it would. Family, neighbors, old friends of my stepmom gathered for what was supposed to be a casual Friday night meal. But now the laughter was gone, the clinking dishes washed and shelved, and the house had fallen into that strange kind of stillness that only happens after guests leave. I slipped off my shoes near the hallway and padded toward the kitchen, still in the same jeans and button-up I'd thrown on hours ago. My shirt was wrinkled, untucked. I felt tired, but more from the weird energy of the night than from the day itself. I hadn't expected to feel so out of place in my own house. Or maybe it wasn't really mine anymore. The kitchen light was still on. It wasn't the overhead light, just the under-cabinet ones. The soft, warm glow that made everything look a little more cinematic. There was music playing faintly from someone's phone speaker, something smooth and wordless. And she was there, Claire, my stepmom's best friend. The one who had helped organize the whole dinner, the one who floated between rooms all night like she belonged to each of them. She always had that kind of presence, low-voiced, graceful, effortless. I'd known her since I was 16, but only in that distant, familiar way people know the adults who hang around the periphery of their childhood. We'd never had more than the usual small talk. But tonight, something felt different. She was sitting on the kitchen counter, barefoot, one leg crossed over the other, robe wrapped loosely around her. Pale blue, thin, one of those soft fabrics that caught the light with each subtle movement. Her damp hair was tied into a lazy knot, a few strands falling around her face. She held a glass of wine in one hand, the stem pinched between two fingers, and her gaze lifted to meet mine the second I walked in. I froze, just for a beat. She smiled, not surprised, not awkward, just amused. "I thought everyone left," I said, trying to sound casual. "They did," she replied, her voice smooth, low. "I stayed to clean up. Sort of." I glanced around. The counters were mostly clear, dishes in the drying rack. The scent of lemon and dish soap still lingered in the air. She swirled her wine gently, eyes not leaving mine. "You didn't have to come back in. I figured you'd be gone by now." I leaned against the fridge. I was technically. Got halfway to the car and realized I left my phone charging in the hallway. "Lucky me," she said softly. The words landed with a quiet thud between us. I tried to tell myself it was nothing, just something people say when they're being polite. But her eyes, dark, steady, didn't blink, didn't look away. She meant it. She took a sip of wine, then gestured to the empty glass on the counter beside her. "Want one?" I hesitated. "Are we still hosting?" "No," she said, her smile growing just a little. "This is the after party." Her feet shifted slightly as she uncrossed her legs and hopped down from the counter. The robe slipped a little off one shoulder, and she made no effort to adjust it. She moved with the kind of ease that only comes from comfort in the space, in herself, maybe even in me. She poured the wine without asking what kind I liked, just reached for the bottle, filled the glass, and handed it to me as if we'd done this 100 times. I took it, fingers brushing hers. She didn't pull away. There was a pause, one of those silences that aren't empty but full of something unspoken. I took a small sip, tasted dry, a little sharp. "So," I said, desperate to say something, anything, "you live nearby now?" She tilted her head. "Hom, a few blocks away. But your mom invited me to stay over. Said it'd be easier than driving home so late." "She already went to bed?" "About 20 minutes ago." She looked at me again, slower this time. "It's just you and me now." Her tone was even, calm, but the words landed heavier than they should have. Something twisted in my chest, familiar and unfamiliar all at once. I took another sip to distract myself. Claire leaned back against the counter, arms crossed, wine glass still in one hand. The robe shifted slightly as she moved, revealing the curve of her hip, just for a second, before the fabric fell back into place. She didn't seem to notice, or maybe she did. "You've changed," she said, eyes skimming me up and down. "I mean, obviously, but I remember you being quieter." I raised an eyebrow. "I'm still quiet." She laughed softly. "No, you're just quieter in your head now." I didn't know how to respond to that. She took another sip of wine, then, without warning, turned and hopped back onto the counter. Legs dangling, robe folding softly around her knees. She looked at me, not like I was a guest or a kid she used to know, but like someone worth seeing. Then she said it, calmly, simply, like it was just a fact. "Everyone's gone. Just you and me." The music in the background kept playing, quiet and slow. The kitchen felt too warm all of a sudden. My hand tightened slightly around the stem of the glass. I didn't say anything. Couldn't. She smiled again, smaller this time, like she knew exactly what she was doing. And for the first time since walking into that kitchen, I realized I wasn't tired anymore. I was wide awake. I stood there longer than I meant to, wine glass in hand, not drinking, just watching her. Claire didn't move. She sat on the edge of the counter like it was the most natural place in the world for her to be. Bare legs gently swinging, robe loose enough to hint at curves without showing too much. She looked like something between a memory and a secret, and I wasn't sure which was more dangerous. The music changed, something jazzier now, still soft. She glanced toward the speaker, then back to me. "You okay?" she asked, tilting her head slightly. I nodded, then cleared my throat. "Yeah, just didn't expect company." She smiled, slow and unbothered. "Funny, I didn't either." She raised the wine glass to her lips again, and I couldn't help noticing how delicate her fingers looked on the glass, how relaxed her posture was, how completely comfortable she seemed in that space. The robe shifted slightly as she adjusted her seat, one bare thigh catching the undercabinet light in a way that made me look away for a second. "Long day?" she asked. "Kind of. I think I talked to every second cousin I didn't know I had." She laughed, warm and genuine. "Family events are exhausting. Everyone asks you the same questions, then acts like your answers surprise them." "Exactly," I said. "College, future plans, relationships." Claire raised an eyebrow. "And what did you tell them?" "For which part?" She gave a playful shrug. "Start with the relationship bit." I smirked. "Told them I'm focused on school." "Ah," she said, mock serious. The classic deflection. More like the honest answer. Claire set her glass down on the counter beside her. "So no one's serious?" "Nope." She studied me for a moment, eyes unreadable. Then, "That surprises me." "Why?" "Because I remember you being—" She trailed off, searching. "Sweet, thoughtful. The kind of guy girls fall for and don't even realize it until it's too late." I chuckled, feeling my face warm. "Don't think I've heard that one before." She smiled again, smaller this time. I noticed things. There was something about the way she said it, like she wasn't talking about girls at all. Like maybe she'd been noticing me. I looked away for a second, tried to ground myself in something else. The fridge hum, the half-washed cutting board in the sink, the clock over the pantry ticking like it had all night. But none of it worked. My focus kept circling back to her, and she knew it. "You've grown up a lot," she said, voice a touch quieter. I swallowed. "It's been a few years." "Still," she added, "I don't remember you filling out a shirt like that." I blinked. Claire. She raised her hands gently. Sorry, that came out wrong. I shook my head, smiling awkwardly. It's okay. She watched me for a moment more. The air between us shifted again. Subtle but undeniable. There was nothing explicit in her words, but the energy was there, like a current humming just beneath the surface of the floor. I moved to set my glass down, but my hand bumped hers as I did. Not hard, just a light graze across her fingers. Still, she didn't pull away. If anything, she let her fingertips linger, just a second too long. We both froze, her fingers lightly curled in. And then she withdrew them, slow and deliberate, placing her hands in her lap. I looked at her. She looked at me. No one said a word. I exhaled, trying to shake off the heat rising in my chest. I leaned back against the counter across from her, trying to create some space. But the kitchen felt smaller than it had 10 minutes ago. Or maybe I'd just become more aware of how close we were. She swung her legs gently again, the robe parting slightly at the knee. The dim light made the whole room feel like a scene from a dream. Not quite real, but dangerously easy to believe in. You know, she said eventually, I always wondered what kind of man you'd turn into. I looked up. What do you mean? Claire shifted her weight slightly, bracing herself with one hand behind her. The robe slipped further off her shoulder, exposing smooth skin and the delicate slope of her collarbone. You were always watching, even when you didn't think anyone noticed. Quiet but always present. It made you different. I tried to joke. In a creepy way? She laughed softly. No, in a real way. Her eyes held mine. That same silence returned. Not empty, not filler. Something inside me stirred. Something I didn't want to name just yet. She reached for her wine again and took a slow sip, then said so lightly I almost missed it. I always liked that about you. The words hit harder than they should have. You say that like you used to think about me, I said carefully. Claire set the glass down again. Her eyes didn't move from mine. Maybe I did, she said. The words sat there, open, undeniable. I don't think I'm the kid you remember, I said, the words surprising even me. She smiled. I know you're not. Her voice dropped a little on that last word, like she wanted me to feel it, not just hear it. My pulse was racing. Claire slid off the counter again, but this time she didn't move away. She walked a step closer, slow, barefoot on the tile, the hem of her robe brushing her knees. She stood right in front of me now, close enough for me to smell her. Vanilla, jasmine, a hint of wine. She reached behind me, grabbing a dish towel hanging from the cabinet. For a second, her body was inches from mine. I didn't move. She didn't rush. Then she stepped back, folded the towel, and placed it neatly beside the sink. I watched every movement. She turned her head, looked at me over her shoulder. Relax, she said. I'm just cleaning up. But her eyes told a different story, and the robe she didn't bother adjusting told another. She turned away, just enough for me to see the curve of her back beneath the loose fabric. The knot of the robe was tied tight at her waist, but the way it draped across her shoulders made it feel like it could fall open at any moment. She wiped the counter with slow, circular movements, clearly not in a rush. And neither was I. I stood there, silent, trying to decide whether this was just casual or something else entirely. She finally spoke without turning around. You're staring. I blinked. Sorry. I didn't mean to. She glanced over her shoulder, one eyebrow raised. Didn't mean to? Or didn't stop? The way she said it, it wasn't accusatory. It wasn't teasing either. It was direct, honest, like she was calling it what it was and daring me to admit it. I didn't answer. She turned slowly to face me again, the dish towel now folded neatly in her hands. "You've been doing that all night." "What?" "Looking," she said. "When you thought I wouldn't notice. When I walked past. When I sat on the counter." I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. I felt like a teenager again, caught in something I couldn't explain, couldn't back away from. Claire tilted her head. "You're not in trouble. I just didn't expect to be alone with you." She gave a half smile. "Me neither." Silence again. A charged one. Then she said softly, "But I'm not exactly complaining." That pulled something in my chest. Something tight and undeniable. I stepped closer. Just one step. I wasn't sure why. My body moved before my brain caught up. She didn't move. "Claire," I started, but I didn't know how to finish. She placed the towel on the counter beside her and looked up at me. Her eyes were steady, warm, curious, and completely unafraid. "I know what you're thinking," she said. I didn't respond. She continued, "And you're not crazy." Her voice was quieter now, intimate in a way that made the space between us shrink again. "I noticed you too," she said. "Not just tonight. Other times. Before." I swallowed. "What does that mean?" She stepped a little closer. "I don't know," she said honestly. "But I haven't been able to stop thinking about how different you seem now. Not just older, more aware. Of yourself. Of me." Her fingers reached up and tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Her hand lingered there for a second, then slowly dropped to her side again. "I probably shouldn't say this," she added, "but I've never been great at pretending." Another step brought her within arm's reach. "I wasn't pretending either," I said. "When I looked at you." She smiled faintly. "I know." The music behind us faded into a new song. Slower, softer, almost cinematic. Claire glanced toward the hallway. "This feels crazy, doesn't it?" "Yeah." "Wrong." I shook my head. "Just dangerous." She looked up at me again, and this time there was a flicker of something deeper in her eyes. Longing, doubt, hope. Then she said, almost in a whisper, "I don't want to do something I can't take back." I nodded. "I get that. But I also don't want to keep pretending this isn't happening." We stood there, close enough to feel each other's breath. The distance between us was barely a hand's width. She looked down, then back up. "If you want to go, go." I didn't move. "If you stay," she continued, "I need to know it's because you want this, not because of the wine, or the robe, or whatever weird fantasy got stuck in your head tonight." "I want this," I said. I didn't think. I didn't second guess. It just came out. She looked at me for a long time, searching. Then she reached out, slowly, and touched the edge of my shirt, right near the bottom hem. Not tugging, not pulling, just holding. "You've changed," she said softly, "but not into someone I don't recognize." That did something to me, calmed and excited me all at once. She stepped back, not away, but toward the counter again. She turned and leaned against it, her back to me now. "I'm not going to make the first move," she said. I froze. She looked over her shoulder. "But if you don't leave, I'm not going to stop you either." I stood there for a beat, two. My pulse was thunder in my ears. Then I placed my glass quietly beside hers. I didn't leave. She didn't turn. The kitchen clock ticked once, twice, 3 times. Then she said, without looking at me, "Okay." And that single word shattered whatever barrier had been left. But still, no rushing, no grabbing, no sudden lunge. I walked closer, step by step, until I was behind her. My fingers hovered just near her waist. I waited. She leaned back, just slightly, until the back of her robe brushed my knuckles. That was her answer. I rested my hand on the counter beside hers. She looked down at it, then up at me, and for the first time since I stepped into the kitchen, I saw something completely new in her expression. Permission. The house was completely still. Not just quiet, but the kind of stillness that makes you notice everything. The low hum of the fridge, the faint click of the ceiling vent, the gentle scratch of Claire's breath as it passed through her nose. We weren't touching. Not really. Her back leaned just slightly into my chest. Her robe, thin as it was, separated us. But my hand was now on the edge of the counter beside hers. She hadn't pulled away. She hadn't moved. She was waiting. I didn't do anything dramatic. No grabbing, no kisses, no movie scene moments. Just stood there, present, close, and she turned her face slightly toward me, just enough to speak without raising her voice. "You're shaking," she whispered. I was, just a little. "Not because I'm scared," I said. She smiled gently. "Me neither." She reached up then, slowly, and adjusted the robe where it had slipped lower over her shoulder. A simple motion, modest, thoughtful, but not for modesty's sake. It was a signal. I'm still in control of this moment. I'm still me. She turned around to face me fully. Now we were eye to eye, just inches apart. Her voice was soft when she asked, "What are you thinking?" I hesitated, then said the only thing I could honestly say, that I don't want this night to end. Her smile shifted, softened. "It doesn't have to end, but it doesn't have to rush either." I nodded. "I know." Claire reached past me then, grabbed her wine glass again, and took a sip. Then she handed it to me. "Finish it," she said. I did. We stood like that for a moment. Quiet, comfortable, tension still present, but not sharp anymore. It had melted into something else. Something warmer, like standing near a fireplace instead of inside a storm. She exhaled, eyes flicking toward the hallway. "I should probably go get ready for bed." I didn't answer. She noticed. "Would it be weird," she asked, "if I said I didn't really want to sleep alone tonight?" My throat tightened. "No, it wouldn't be weird. But I'm not asking for anything dramatic," she added. "I just don't want to feel like I imagined all of this tomorrow." "You didn't," I said. "Good." She stepped past me slowly, her fingers trailing along the countertop, then the edge of my sleeve. Not grabbing, just brushing. A signal. An invitation. At the archway to the hall, she paused and looked back. "I'll leave the door open," she said. "Only if you want to." And then she walked away. No theatrics. No last look. Just her barefoot steps disappearing down the dim hallway. The sway of her robe like a slow-motion curtain drawing closed on a stage. I stood in the kitchen for a long time. The room still held her scent. Jasmine and soap and something faintly floral. The wine lingered on my tongue. The warmth of her closeness still clung to my chest, like a place her presence had briefly claimed. I didn't check my phone. I didn't overthink. I just stood there. Then, eventually, I followed. I moved slowly, quietly. Every step felt like a choice. The hallway light was off, but her door was half open, just like she said. A crack of amber lamplight spilled into the hall, stretching across the floor like a path. I stopped at the threshold. Her voice came softly from inside. "If you're going to hesitate, at least bring me some water." I smiled and stepped in.